The Home Alone movie series has definitely been through a lot throughout the years, whether it's been terrible sequels, a horrible Disney Plus movie earlier this year, and of course, rip-offs, one of which we're going to be talking about today. In this case, we're looking at The Asylum's Alone for Christmas, or as it was released in the UK as Bone Alone. Like a lot of other people, as soon as I heard that title, before even seeing the poster for this thing, I could have sworn that that was a porn parody.
Bone, what did you do?
When the Conley family
I'm sorry, but Bone can't come with us to Grandma's house this year.
leaves for the
I
holidays,
thought it was righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
It's righty-offy, lefty-on.
they leave Bone alone.
You're not going to Grandma's?
I'm going to miss the big turkey dinner.
But when intruders arrive,
Get to work.
it's up to Bone
You have to stop them.
Stop them. How?
to save Christmas.
Time to take these guys down.
The Asylum presents
I'm stuck.
Dad,
Thank you. Wait till you get a load of my bike.
Dog
I am invincible!
is a tricky one.
My God!
Alone for Christmas.
Cuz, you okay?
Darn, Skippy!
I don't think I have to really go into a lot of extensive detail about The Asylum, especially if you've watched videos breaking down all these bad rip-off movies. But for anyone that doesn't know who they are, simply put, they were this company that was really popular in the early 2000s, and especially when retail stores like Blockbuster were still around, we always used to get shipments of these terrible knockoff movies that were made either like a few months before the movie was released in the theaters, or maybe even a year before the movie actually came out, and it was like they made it shortly after the first trailer or something was released. This came out in 2013, like I think maybe after that fifth Home Alone movie came out. I don't even remember. It was the one with Malcolm McDowell, I think. It was straight to TV. I think that was around 2012 or so. But yeah, I think that this movie came out maybe riding the hype train of that. A family leave their dog home when they visit relatives on Christmas Eve. When burglars break in to steal the presents under the tree, the dog uses a variety of tricks to stop the crooks. In other words, yeah, it's just Home Alone, but you swap out kid with dog. So the plot itself, have you seen Home Alone 1? Have you seen movies that tried being like Home Alone 1? Here's what you do when it comes to making a movie like this. You take Home Alone, suck out all of the charm, get actors who are really terrible, get cute dogs and hope people rely solely on that for entertainment factor and go, oh, the dog is so cute. And then you get a bunch of really terrible slapstick comedy that's not fast-paced at all like in the original. Really bad attempts at physical comedy compared to the really good physical comedy in the first Home Alone. And also add a lot of really terrible editing all throughout. When it comes to getting your live action actors, get a bunch of people who look like they would rather be doing anything than being in your movie. The movie begins with this family that just moved into this big house, and they got two dogs. You have one named Bone, and you have one named Columbus. Columbus is the troublemaker of the two, but it seems that Bone's always getting into trouble, and so this year they decide that while they're going to take a 4-hour drive up to their grandparents' house, they're going to drop off Bone at a kennel because he just cannot be trusted to stay alone by himself. This part of the movie is really weird because they're constantly complaining about Bone being a bad dog, and then when they actually get to the kennel, there's a part where the father/husband of the family says something like, oh, but he's such a important member of our family. It's like, okay, well then why are you dropping him off then? Take him with you or don't. You're at the kennel. It seems like a little bit late to be getting cold feet.
I understand times are tough, but a Bone is family.
Bone, what did you do?
Speaking of that guy, I knew I recognized that actor from something, and then I eventually checked the IMDb page, and sure enough, his name is David DeLuise. He's the son of Dom DeLuise, and what I recognized him from was he was the dad in Wizards of Waverly Place. It's interesting. Earlier this year, I reviewed Master of Disguise for this show, and that had the mom from Wizards of Waverly Place, and now we're watching this movie that has the dad from Wizards of Waverly Place. Gosh, I just can't wait to talk about Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, which had the older brother from that show, and then talk about any of the amount of god-awful movies that Selena Gomez has been in over the years. So after they leave Bone at this kennel, which is actually just this dude's house, starting to show their budget limitations right there. Good job, Asylum. But from there, Bone talks with this other dog who has been stuck there forever because his owners said that he was a terrible watchdog, and that's because their house got robbed by 3 robbers. So of course, Bone has to go back and protect his house against the exact same robbers.
You have to stop them.
Stop them? How? I can't call 911. This room doesn't even have a phone. And we don't have thumbs!
Comedy! They know that it's the same robbers because, just like in Home Alone, when Joe Pesci was snooping out the houses while dressed up as a cop, it's basically the same thing, except the leader of the robbers dresses up as a mailman, and once again, he gets key information out of these people.
Thank you. I wasn't sure it would get here before we left.
Left?
Oh, yes, we're going upstate to be with family for the holidays.
Oh, fantastic.
And oh, joy of joys, we have not 2, but 3 robbers this time around, so that means you get 2 Marv variants for the price of 1. This time around, the robbers consist of the leader guy, and then you got one dude who's like really skinny and has like a blonde bowl cut, kind of looks like a poor man's Macaulay Culkin, or that one guy that did that top 10 hottest Sonic female characters video.
Here we go!
The other one is a bumbling fat guy. So yeah, it's not only are we ripping off Home Alone now, but we're also ripping off Three Stooges, I guess.
Back, go, 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 go.
Before we actually talk about the main crux of the movie with this dog setting up traps around the house, really, I just want to throw this in that the stuff with the family, because they keep cutting back all throughout, but all the stuff with the human family was really, really fucking boring. It doesn't help that the acting is pretty bad, especially when it comes to the little kid actors, but I mean, the most annoying thing about the kids in this movie is that they have this running gag with the little boy in the family. He's always on his phone or always on his tablet or some shit like that. I guess that's Asylum trying to make some kind of boomer statement about how young people are just glued to social media, I guess. But he has this horrible running gag where every time something lame happens or some kind of mild inconvenience happens, he goes on about how this is the worst Christmas ever.
Can't wait to enter it in my diary. How I spent my Christmas vacation. Dad showed me how to strip lug nuts and we both shared sickness. Jeepers! Worst Christmas ever. There's barely been any snow this year, so it doesn't feel very merry anyway. I'm telling you, Hunter, this is gonna be the worst Christmas ever. Sucks! Uncle Rich, you shouldn't have. Worst Christmas ever.
Entitled little snot. The other thing of note is that Columbus, the other dog, ends up discovering that Bone is out of the kennel, so he tries to make a break back for home. He ends up hitching a ride in the back of this truck, and it's driven by some guy and his wife who look like Santa and Mrs. Claus. Family ends up trying to follow that truck, but they're trying to stop them so that they don't get home and see the robbers. What they do to try and stop the family from getting home before they do is the Columbus and the dog that's in the back of their pickup truck, the way that they animate his mouth makes him look like a dog version of Scrat from Ice Age, because his nose is always bent down. It's really distracting.
Save Christmas? That's adorable. Where are you going?
How they stop the family is they throw a 2x4 with nails out the back of the truck, and then it punctures their tires, and then the car that the family's in does this terrible effect. The way that was animated, it looked like one of those 2012 videos where people get like green screen footage of guys shooting guns or explosions from Call of Duty. It's on par with that. I would say the Asylum's effects were getting better, but let's face it, that's a backhanded compliment, really. Going back to how annoying that the little kid is, there's a part where, I guess now we're ripping off A Christmas Story, where the dad and the son are trying to change a tire, and the kid's just bitching the whole way through, and it's like, okay, come on. So just stop being a cynical little dick. And because the dad is, of course, stupid family movie dad where he just has to be incredibly incompetent 24/7. He lets the spare tire roll away, and we never see what became of that. The next time we see them, I think they just get home. So it's like, what happened to the spare tire? I would love to believe that the spare tire rolled off and then it just became that movie Rubber with that dumbass movie with the killer tire. I would love to believe that they're in the same canon. But then you get back to all the booby traps that are laid all throughout the house that end up foiling the robbers, and it's nowhere near as impressive as Home Alone. And again, it's because it's the Asylum. It has a very low budget. They clearly couldn't make anything that intricate, but juggling between really terrible physical comedy that's just way too slow in between really terrible editing.
Hey, who wants tiramisu?
Biggest complaint with all the traps that are in this movie, they're all just minor inconveniences more than anything. I mean, you have it that the dog super glued all these stuffed animals so that, you know, one guy ends up taking his shoes off so that he steps on Legos, goes fumbling into a room, lands into stuffed animals, and now he has like 10 or so stuffed animals all over him.
Oh, gosh.
The part where the fat guy ends up inside their shower because he accidentally rubbed his face with some cloth that had hot sauce on it. And he goes into the shower to try and wash his face, and then the dog just locks him in the shower by putting a broom up against the door. And like they establish that like it's starting to fill up with water, and the entire time I was just sitting there thinking, dude has like an hour before that thing floods. Then eventually he ends up escaping because the thing overfloods, and it ends up flooding the house, except not really. And you got the blonde bowl cut guy who has he's like, they try way too hard to make this guy the funny one of the bunch, because then it's like, they give him traps like, he ends up stuck in a laundry chute, and then he ends up going down to the basement, and the dog set up this barbecue grill, and he ends up landing face first, and just watch this, it's so horribly edited. There's another part where he ends up inside the chimney because of some wire rig that they had, and he's stuck inside the fireplace and he keeps farting, and every time it makes the fire, you know, kind of do a little explosion, because that's how fucking gas works.
Oh, keep it tight, Rob. Oh, clench it up. Oh.
It's good to see the same bullshit pseudoscience from Daddy Day Camp was also in this movie, because that also had a terrible joke about methane leak and farts and whatever. The weirdest surprise in this movie is that Kevin Sorbo is in it, which it by itself didn't surprise me because Kevin Sorbo's been in a lot of shit recently, a lot of just pandering crap. And I mean, before this, like years before this one, he was in Meet the Spartans. But the weird thing is, when he's on screen, he's actually acting. Like, he actually seems to be giving it his all, and it's really unsettling. Guess what? He's only in 2 scenes. The only legitimate acting in the movie, and he's not in the movie for that long. Basically what happens is, the main robber guy calls his cousin, and that's Kevin Sorbo, because he's some kind of like dog catcher, and he says something about like, he has some kind of racket where he takes pets and then holds them for ransom so that the owners pay him a shitload of money. It's just kind of a one-off line. It doesn't really mean anything. But what happens is he gets to the house and he begins doing this speech that's lifted straight from Quint's speech from Jaws. They even do the whole lifeless eyes thing like in that movie.
Now that poodle, he'd look right at you. Look you right in the eyes.
See, poodles got lifeless eyes.
Then, just a couple seconds later, he goes for the dog, and then he steps on a little train track that's set up around the Christmas tree and gets electrocuted, and then he just leaves.
You okay to drive? Drive, okay.
Alright, goodbye Kevin Sorbo. Hope the Asylum check was worth it. Columbus and the Scrat-looking dog end up showing up, and at this point in the movie, Bone gets locked in a closet by the robbers, who then just begin robbing the house. It's like, why the hell didn't they try robbing this place before all these dumbass traps were set off? And also, you're gonna put the dog in the closet where the dog can easily get back out, because they established this dog is super fucking smart. So, you know the dog's gonna end up getting out. Why don't they just do something about the dog? Why don't they just do something about the dog right now, instead of giving it a chance to easily screw them over again?
After we clean out your house, on our way out of town, we're gonna drop you off. Off a bridge, that is.
Yeah, Columbus and the German Shepherd show up. They wrap up the bad guys once they're all defeated. And, then the family just comes home and they're like, oh, wow, our dogs are home. Not at all fazed by the fact that there are robbers tied up in their house or anything. There's, like, no acknowledgement of that. And then the big twist of the movie is, oh, the Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus looking people, that was actually Grandma and Grandpa that they were going to visit. So they're home for Christmas. And then it starts snowing. That's the other thing I forgot to bring up all throughout this movie. Every time they're outside, they have this like really shit filter on the camera to try and make it look like it's colder outside, but in reality, it looks like they filmed this thing during summer or something. It doesn't look at all cold anytime they're outside. Whenever they show the family driving, all the windows are just pure white. Like, it looks like they're traveling through, like, an interdimensional portal or some kind of fog. It's like, I get that they probably couldn't do a whole lot of, like, actual driving cinematography, but seriously, that is lazy, even for Asylum standards. As for this movie, I mean, it was exactly what I was expecting. It's a bad Home Alone knockoff made by the Asylum. The human characters aren't very interesting. The actual jokes they try are very bad. The slapstick is terrible. The editing is shit. It is exactly what you'd come to expect from a bad Asylum knockoff. And, I mean, this thing was so embarrassing, it made even the lesser Home Alone sequels look good. So, yeah, that does it for Blockbuster Show for this year. Tune in next year where we're going to do a bunch of different movie-related content. We're going to try and branch out, do some new stuff here and there for Blockbusters. Maybe some commentary stuff, maybe some skit-based stuff. But that's all for next year. I'm done for Blockbusters this year, so... yeah, until then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Come on, guys, let's go inside.
Here we go!